It all began on my 18th birthday. My brother handed me a gift, a cheap 5-cent children's watch. And then, without warning, he vanished. From that moment, my life began to count down. When I was just a year old, our parents died in a fire. An old gatekeeper at the orphanage took my brother and me in. He raised us, sent us to school. My brother finished high school and started working away from home. We didn't reunite until I got accepted into college, in the same city where he worked. That day, my birthday, he brought me to his rented room. He had already prepared a full hot pot dinner, waiting quietly for me. As we sat down, he stared at me silently. There was a flicker of sadness in his eyes, barely noticeable. Then he pulled a small gift box from his pocket and handed it to me, saying it was my birthday present. I didn't hesitate and opened it on the spot, only to find a child's digital watch inside. White strap, black screen. I stared at it, confused. "What is this?" I asked. He smiled and said, "It's your coming-of-age gift. Do you like it?" I awkwardly put it on my left wrist and looked at the time. The display showed exactly 000000. Something felt strange. I tried to adjust it, but there were no buttons. "Where are the controls?" I muttered. "Right here," came a sudden voice. The world around me began to spin violently. The floor beneath me shattered into endless gray fragments. Strange, massive, dark shadows floated above me, just like the soul-devouring creatures I vaguely remembered from childhood. They surrounded me, and then I heard a baby crying. I turned toward the sound and saw a black mist forming into strange tendrils, swaying softly. "What is that?" I thought in fear. The shadows in the air began to spin. I felt dizzy, and before I realized it, my body was being torn apart. My limbs scattered, dissolving into countless black threads, which were sucked into the swirling shadows. Was I dying? Suddenly, the black mist split open, releasing a blinding white light. Beams of pale energy shot out, twisted into a rope of light, and surged toward my head. It caught me. In an instant, everything vanished. The sky, the ground, the shadows, all turned into a dark, spinning abyss. My consciousness plunged toward its center. I gasped and sat up, drenched in sweat. My clothes were soaked. It was just a nightmare, I told myself, though my head still throbbed with confusion. I remembered having hot pot with my brother the night before, then blacking out. "Brother," I called out. My throat was dry, and I drank a full glass of water. Then I looked around the house. He wasn't there. I tried calling his phone. "The number you dialed is not in service," said the robotic voice. I checked his contact. It was right. I called again. Still no service. I tried video calling, but his profile picture was gone. I opened our family group chat. Only Grandpa and I were left. My brother's account had vanished, along with all past messages. I froze in place. Something wasn't right. I slapped my face to wake up. It hurt. I looked down again. The children's watch was gone. In its place, embedded in my skin, was a string of black numbers. 062317. The digits pulsed with my heartbeat. I stared at them, watching them tick down. A creeping sense of dread filled me. "Brother!" I shouted and searched the apartment again. He truly wasn't there. Clenching my jaw, I ran out the door. Just as I exited the building, I collided with a young man outside. He was taking my brother's electric scooter. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" I yelled. Startled, the guy turned toward me. He looked confused. "Me? What do you mean?" He was around 26, had dyed blonde hair, a round face. "This is my brother's scooter," I shouted. "Your brother? Who's that?" he replied. "Never heard of anyone named Bai Ju around here. I've been delivering here for months. You must be mistaken." He jumped on the scooter and rode off, leaving me stunned. That wasn't just theft. It felt like someone was erasing my brother's existence. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police, when I heard someone behind me. "Dabai?" a woman's voice asked. Startled, I turned. A stranger stood there. Red, wavy hair, tight black heels, a designer handbag, holding half a watermelon. She looked puzzled for a second, then smiled stiffly. "Oh, sorry, I mistook you for someone else." She paused. "Wait, are you Dabai's younger brother?" I realized she thought I was my brother. "I'm Baiju's landlord," she said. "Just call me Sister Sia." She looked me over with narrowed eyes. Wow, you two really do look alike. But your brother, he's more handsome. I forced a polite smile. Sister Sia, are you looking for my brother? I asked. Yeah, she said, lifting the watermelon. I came to collect rent. Both of us were sitting in the living room, eating watermelon. I casually mentioned that my brother had gone out, but hadn't told me she was coming. She looked surprised. That wasn't like him. My brother never acted without informing. I explained that my phone was broken and suggested she call him. She agreed and dialed, but the number didn't exist. Maybe it's a signal issue, I said. Try video calling. She nodded and started scrolling through her phone, but suddenly her face changed. Where's his contact? It was in my favorites. How can it just vanish? She muttered to herself about everything feeling bizarre today. I quickly said, I'll go look for him. Do you know where he might be? She thought for a second and replied, he usually goes to the vegetable market early in the morning and sometimes runs at Tiandi Park at night. Her lips curled up with a memory. Right, I nodded. I'll go find him. Just as I stood up, I felt something warm. You're bleeding, she exclaimed. I reached up. My hand was soaked in blood. My mouth felt metallic and my chin was sticky. The nosebleed wasn't stopping. Hold it tight, just pinch your nose, she shouted, rushing to the kitchen. Moments later, she returned with a cold pack and pressed it against the back of my neck. After a few minutes, the bleeding finally stopped. My body seemed fine, just a bit thirsty. I picked up the watermelon again and began eating. I reassured her, once I find my brother, I'll let you know immediately. Before leaving, she handed me her card. Add me once your phone is working, she said. As soon as she left, I headed to the food delivery station. I asked about Bai Jue. The man at the desk sniffed the air and said, yeah, I remember him. He resigned. What? When? He turned the computer screen toward me. Last month, no reason listed. I leaned in and froze. The ID photo on the screen wasn't my brother. It was someone else entirely. My face went pale. Maybe it's a name mix-up, he offered. I quickly pulled out my phone to show him a photo of my brother. But as I scrolled through the album, something terrifying happened. Every single photo of my brother had changed. Each face now matched the man in the records. A complete stranger. That's him, right? The man asked. No, that's not my brother, I cried. Suddenly my stomach churned. A wave of blood-scented nausea hit me hard. I ran straight to the public restroom. As soon as I bent over the toilet, blood exploded from my mouth and nose, splattering everything. I collapsed to the floor, heart pounding wildly, hands trembling, panic, confusion. Nothing made sense anymore. I stared at the pool of blood. Something gray floated inside it. Without thinking, I reached into the bloody mess. My fingers brushed against something strange, glittering white threads. My temples throbbed violently. Images flashed in my head. A man's twisted face from my nightmare. A digital watch showing exactly 0000. Was this a countdown to my death? I pulled myself together and immediately messaged Sister Sia and Grandpa, asking for any old photos of Bai Jue. Moments later, both sent pictures, but every image showed that same unfamiliar man. It was like the world had completely erased my brother. Thunder cracked. Heavy rain poured down. I wandered the soaked streets, dazed, whispering to myself, it's all just a dream, a nightmare. Suddenly, a car veered close and hit me. I fell onto the street as the driver jumped out, panicking, dialing for help. Then, my phone lit up. Another message from Sister Zia. Here's one more, my favorite one, she wrote. I opened it and my heart jumped. There he was, my real brother, in a t-shirt, towel draped on his shoulder, drenched in sweat, smiling awkwardly as he raised his hand to block the camera. This was the only photo that hadn't changed. Hope flickered inside me. I zoomed into the background. A stone monument, barely visible, it read, Tiandi Park. I saved the image and looked at my watch. 3 hours, 36 minutes left. There was still time. 10 minutes later, I arrived at Tiandi Park. It was huge, filled with hills, a lake. I knew it would take all day to search on foot. So I boarded the sightseeing cart and scanned the park as it drove around. No sign of him. But just as the cart rolled to a stop near the exit, the driver shouted at me, "Hey, You've ridden twice already. Planning to stay all afternoon? I had only taken one ride, barely 20 minutes at most, but somehow an entire hour had passed. The countdown seemed to be accelerating. I stared at my wrist. No, the timer was still ticking down second by second. Then it hit me. During the ride, I had zoned out briefly, but that was just for a few seconds. Cold sweat dripped from my temples as realization dawned. Time hadn't sped up. It was my perception of time that had changed. That's why it felt like time was being stolen from me. Suddenly, I felt that same dizzying sensation again. I slapped myself hard and quickly pulled a pen from my bag, stabbing it into my hand. The sharp pain grounded me. I picked up my pace. Every few minutes, I jabbed the pen into my arm to stay awake, relying on the pain. I searched the park for what felt like half an hour. My arm beneath the sleeve was now covered in reddish bruises, and even the pain had started to dull. I switched to stabbing my thigh instead. As I passed a busy food street, I spotted a familiar silhouette in the crowd, tall, thin, wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a meal box. It was her, Snow. I shouted her name and charged into the crowd, pushing my way forward like a madman. Just as I was about to reach her, the dizzy spell hit me again, like a sledgehammer to the back of my head. I tried to stab my thigh again, but I couldn't feel my hand anymore. That same eerie sensation from the nightmare returned. I felt myself floating above the street, looking down on the ocean of people. Then everything around me started to blur and speed up, turning into streaks of light. A piercing scream yanked me back to reality. I was still standing in the middle of the road, surrounded by horrified strangers, all staring at me like I was some kind of monster. I slowly lifted my left wrist. The countdown showed just 9 minutes left. Damn it, how was I supposed to win this? Just then, a drop of blood fell onto the back of my hand. Then more. Someone in the crowd shouted, "He's bleeding!" Another screamed, "Call an ambulance!" Panic spread like wildfire. All my struggles suddenly felt pointless. I staggered out of the crowd, people recoiling from me like I carried a plague. Dazed and barely conscious, I stumbled into a quiet, muddy path and collapsed under a tree. I looked at my wrist one last time. 7 minutes left, just 7 minutes of life. I didn't want to waste a second more. I closed my eyes and started recalling my short, chaotic life. Somewhere nearby, I heard the faint hum of an electric scooter. Instinctively, I ducked behind the tree. A scooter stopped in front of the small grove. A young man got off and removed his helmet. I recognized him immediately. It was the bike thief. I stabbed my thigh again with all my might. The pen snapped in half, but the searing pain snapped me back to reality. I watched as the guy looked up at the surveillance camera on the streetlight, as if checking for something. He quickly took off his jacket, pulled a green raincoat from his box, and put it on. Then he wore a feathered hood and an abstract metallic mask with a dial. He twisted it as he spoke into it repeatedly. "Hello? Hello?" His voice soon turned raspy and low, completely unrecognizable. Disguised, he picked up his backpack and walked into the grove. There was no doubt left. This guy was involved. He had something to do with my brother's disappearance. I forced my weakened body to follow him into the woods. Strange animal calls echoed around. Visibility dropped to just a few meters. A burning sensation erupted on my wrist, spreading through my body. My heart was pounding uncontrollably. 1 minute left. I had no time to think. I shouted through the woods, "You bike thief! This is your doing, isn't it? What did you do to me? Where is my brother? Show yourself!" My voice echoed through the darkness. Then I froze. Through the fog, a tall and slim figure emerged, standing silently like it had been there all along. My heart leaped. "Brother, is that you?" I ran forward, overwhelmed with relief, until my heart suddenly stopped cold. I couldn't breathe. My body collapsed onto the muddy ground. The burning sensation on my wrist spread like fire through my veins. I felt like I was melting from the inside out, but I didn't give up. I pushed forward, dragging myself through the mud with my last ounce of strength, crawling toward that shadowy figure in the mist. "Brother, help me." 5 seconds left. I reached his feet. 4 seconds. The dark figure knelt down slowly. 3 seconds. He extended his hand. 2 seconds. He grabbed my left hand. 1 second. Live 0. Find me. Subscribe for more horror stories.